Hi, everyone. This is Eric Molin, and this is Impact Presenting, podcast episode 10. In this edition, I'll speak with Lisa Quist, who's a life insurance and transition planning specialist for Compeer Financial. Lisa attended one of my public speaking courses in 2019 to prepare for a large presentation, and in this episode, she'll share a bit about that journey, getting ready for large audiences, some key lessons that she's learned, and pass along some advice for other presenters who are looking to up their game and make more impact. So good morning, Lisa. Great that you could join us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Eric. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, over there in Minnesota right now. It's morning, I think.
Correct. It is hot and humid here today.
Well, it's afternoon in Vienna, so yeah, it's hot and humid here as well. So really, it's great that we could reconnect. And for people who don't know who we are, we can maybe have a little short introduction.
Okay. So my name is Lisa Quist. I work at Compeer Financial, which is part of the United States Farm Credit System. It's an agricultural-based lending institution in the upper Midwest. We cover Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. We are part of the United States Farm Credit System. We are an agriculture-related lending institution in the upper Midwest. We cover Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, and our clients are all farmers.
So a little bit about me. I'm Eric Molin. I'm a public speaking coach, and I'm based in Vienna, Austria. I work across the United States and Europe, although not at the moment. Now I mostly concentrate on clients through my webcam, like I think most people. And something that's really great about these podcasts is I have the chance to talk to my students. So I guess for people who don't know, we met, what was it, about a year ago now?
Yep, just a little bit less than a year ago at a class you did in Denver, Colorado.
Yep, that's right. I remember. And so, you're staying in touch with people and you find out a little bit about how public speaking has their journey. And that's kind of the whole point of these podcasts, are for people out there who want to be able to get on stage, virtual stage or live stage, whatever, but they really want to be able to get in front of a group of people and let their expertise out, but do it in a way that people listen and take something away. And so you came into the class and you have a very specialized kind of presentation to a very specialized audience. And maybe tell us a little bit about what it was like, let's say, before the class for you, the whole thing about your boss said, hey, you have to give a presentation, and what went through your head.
Sure. So just to back up a little bit, kind of my story, I started at Compeer just over 5 years ago. And before working at Compeer, I was a full-time stay-at-home mom who homeschooled my kids and farmed with my husband. I had zero public speaking experience at all. I did have my insurance licenses from earlier in my career before having children, and so got the job on the life insurance team at Compeer Financial. And part of my job at that point was doing presentations to small groups of people. Usually 20 or less were in the room. And actually on my first week of work, I was asked to give one of these presentations. So I started, and 5 days later, I was in front of my first group. It was my first public speaking experience ever. And so I did that role for about 2 years, and then our company went through a large merger. When I first started, we only covered Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, and then we went through a large merger, and we now covered Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And through that merger, I moved from just being in the life insurance department to actually leading the life insurance department. So now I was giving more of these presentations, and my groups were still 20 to 30 people in the room, sometimes a few less, rarely over 30. But I had been called on then a couple of times to present to our executive leadership team, or our, kind of more of the bigwigs in the company, if you will, which was rather intimidating for me, just this little stay-at-home mom with no public speaking experience. And about a year into that, I was tasked with developing a brand new department at the company, where we were going to start working on transition planning and offering transition planning to our clients. And they asked me to come up with a plan of how I was going to develop this department and this program. And I was then to pitch it to our leadership team after I developed my plan. So I went to go do the pitch. And in my pitch, I knew that they wanted this presented to our whole sales team, which would be about 300 people in the room. And so as part of my pitch, I pitched to the leadership team that it should really be our partners that did that presentation, so that I wasn't actually the one on stage. And I gave my pitch, and everybody in the room said, "Oh, we love your idea. We love how you're going to roll this out. There's just one part we don't like. We want you to be the one to present to the whole sales team, not our partners."
Oh.
And my boss was sitting across from me in the room, and I'm sure my face went completely white. And the lead of the whole department looked at me and said, "So will you do it? Will you do the presentation?" And I looked at my boss with like the deer in the headlights look and said, "Yes." And she's nodding her head like, "Yes, yes, yes, you can do this. You can do this." And then I completely panicked because I have never.
What have I done?
What did I just agree to? I'm going to be presenting to all of my peers.
300 people?
300 people about this program that I have developed and come up with this idea. And oh my word, what am I going to do now? So I started researching public speaking classes because I knew that I did fine with a group of 20, but I needed help if I was going to present to 300. And that's how I came across your class and ended up in Denver with you.
So you came to the class and we had a couple of days together and you had some hands-on practice with feedback. And what were the key takeaways? Like, what did you think was the most useful thing that you learned in those couple of days as far as managing that anxiety towards this, audience of 300 people you were going to have to face?
Yeah. So I think there were a couple of things in your presentation that really stuck out to me, but the one thing that you really pointed out to me was when I would get nervous, I would stand up in the front of the room and I would cross my legs and didn't even realize I was doing it. And, we kind of talked about that this is a nervous habit. You're doing it most likely to try to protect yourself and make yourself feel more comfortable or secure. And you just really helped me make me aware that I was even doing it, and encouraged me that when I felt the urge to cross my legs, I should start walking across the stage. And just that in and of itself, I found myself calming down, being more relaxed. So that was huge. I think you pointed out to me, one of the things you talked about was your iceberg analogy, like your nervousness only 10% shows and the rest is all under the water. That really helped me to kind of get out of my own head. Like, you know what? I may be horribly nervous to do this, but the people in the audience don't see it. And also the realization that most of the people in that room would never have the guts to get up on the stage and do this presentation in front of 300 people. So all of those things, and then some deep breathing exercises that we had gone through, all of those things put together helped me at least be able to do it. And I was still nervous. I was horribly nervous, but I did it. And after it was over, I was so proud of myself. I was so pumped that I got over this fear and did this huge presentation. I've had people since then tell me, "You would have never known you were nervous up there. You commanded the room. You did a great job. Your presentation was fantastic. No one would have known how nervous you were," which proves your iceberg analogy.
Well, that is true. And then if also the thing about, for example, crossing the legs, I mean, pretty much everyone that comes to the class, everyone has this fear of rejection. Some people have it much more than others. Some people maybe don't care as much, but it manifests itself in interesting ways. Like, for example, crossing legs. Another thing that people do is they pull their shoulders forward and up a little bit. Like they're kind of reducing their neck space. It's a very primal instinct in reducing ourselves as a target. And also that this energy. So when you're talking about things and you're thinking about, if everyone gets on board with my message and I can show these kind of results, what it's going to do for my career, it's also very exciting. And when you focus on that, then instead of, the extra energy going into fidgeting, then you use it to amplify your message. And I think that was something that, and then as you said, to know that most of it is invisible. Yeah, that's it. You're a person on stage and you may look like you might be having a nervous moment here or there, but that tends to get drowned out, in the fact that you are on stage owning the room, as you said.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and what do you find as far as public speaking culture goes, as far as, in the company with giving presentation skills? How is this new format, of doing it online, for example? How do you find that? Like, what are the challenges and what's working for you?
Well, I think one challenge that everybody is faced with in this is keeping your audience engaged. It's so easy to pick up your phone and scroll through Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media, or be looking at your email and be kind of off the screen and not. I mean, we all know, right? We're all dealing with the exact same thing. So, how do you keep people engaged in your topic? I present on life insurance, which I get is not the most exciting topic in the universe. I'm constantly trying to figure out how to keep people engaged, even though it's a topic that people don't necessarily maybe want to hear about. One way that I really do that is I insert a lot of personal stories into what I'm doing. I find that it helps build that connection with my audience. I do it whether I'm in person or virtual, but the personal stories kind of bring people back in and bring people back into the message that I'm trying to get across about, why we as a company need to be promoting life insurance, why our clients need life insurance, why this is important, and just bringing in real, don't use fake stories, but bringing in real stories that can help connect the audience to what I'm talking about is one of the tools that I use to try to keep people engaged.
That is so true. Stories, I mean, even on stage in live presentations, I mean, you've experienced for yourself whenever you switch out of giving data and, going into story mode, that's where the magic really happens in your performance. And unlike though, on the live stage, when somebody is just going down the list of bullet points, somehow they're there, you're in an audience, and so somehow it gets tolerated. But when people do this online, I mean, you start really losing your audience. It's so easy to lose them. And so actually it has to stop and you have to do something different. And I've seen, for example, virtual presenters, they're trying to begin a presentation the same way they would on stage, which is today I want to show you this and this. Now, please look at this slide. This is today's agenda. And people are already just slowly disappearing. And then there's people that they begin with, I want you to have a look at this picture. Do you know what this picture represents? Well, let me tell you. And then they give them some really surprising information. And another guy I was recently training, he was going over his background for his video cover, for his CV, for his resume, for job search as a CFO. And he was doing yes, I've been a CFO for 10 years. I was like, no, let's try it this way. And instead he was like, so I'm going to begin my interview by telling you a quote from my ex-boss, who was the richest man in Ireland. And then he would say something that he said. And by this point, we're like, yeah, what did the richest man in Ireland say? We want to hear.
Yeah, we want to know. Can you give us some of that?
And to keep it short, and again, we're finding, I think, content is really now we see what is the nice to know stuff. It's like, okay, here's the link, have a look. And we're focusing just on the need to know because, just people's attention spans online are just not, the same as in a live environment.
Yep. Another thing, Eric, I'd be curious to know what your thoughts on this are, but I've really been encouraging the people who I'm collaborating with that it seems like people stay more engaged if you're able to have two people doing the presentation and kind of bouncing it back and forth between two people, so that instead of 30 minutes of one person talking, you've got, a couple slides of person A and then a couple slides of person B, and then kind of bouncing it back and forth and trying to mimic more of a conversation. Fantastic. It seems like that helps keep people engaged. What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic idea. Absolutely. If you have a meeting with, let's say, a 10-person team and, there's somebody who has a lot to say, but you can somehow divide that, distribute it amongst participants that they could say a few words on it, to anything that allows people to take a more active role in the presentation will help.
Yeah.
Definitely. Great. So let's wrap up with just one question. And that's, out there's a lot of people that they're having to present. There's no way around it. They're a little bit lucky that they can do it, for example, more online. They don't have to worry about getting in front of a room full of people. But there's still a lot of people that they're very shy, that they're, looking to avoid that, give it to someone else, dial it in. And what would you say, like, what would just be like the key piece of advice you could give to anyone who wants to start making their voice heard?
I think the best thing that happened to me, Eric, was when I kind of was deer in the headlights, said yes to doing this presentation, and then I was committed to it. I couldn't back out after that. I couldn't call in sick or call to say my dog died, or I had to be there no matter what happened, right? So commit
yourself, what you're saying.
Yeah, like agree to do something that's out of your comfort zone that you can't back out of, and it just forces your hand and makes you have to do it. And then once you've done it, search out resources to help you be the best you can. Practice, and then practice some more. Video record yourself. We did that in the class. You videoed me and then we all watched it. And while I hate to watch myself on video as much as the next person does, it really helps you be aware of your body and your body language and your movements and the crossing the legs or whatever your nervous thing might be. So those are the things for me that just, I forced myself to do it, and I practiced and I videoed myself. And then I gave my presentation to small groups of my peers. And I said, look, I'm asking you to do this to give me honest feedback. I don't want to get to the end and have you say, that was fantastic. You're in this room because I want this to be the best it can be. Mm-hmm. So be open to feedback, right? Feedback is hard sometimes.
And you have to actively solicit it from people and say, please tell me one thing that I did well and one thing that I could do better.
Exactly.
Really have to demand it, because if you just say, how did I do? Of course, people are just going to say, yeah, it was great.
No, right. That's not what I'm looking for. I want you to tell me
if you really
specifically
and just say, okay, what was great about it? What was one thing? And you ask them more, to go into more depth, then the truth will to come out. And then ask them what's one thing. And of course, when you make it comfortable for people to criticize you, not too comfortable, but that you can then find out the things that no one else is telling you. And that's how you become really great as a communicator, is by plugging up all these little leaks.
Exactly. And I think it's important to prep people ahead of time and to let them know what your expectations are, because otherwise they're listening to it kind of politely. And at the end you say, okay, what's one thing I did great? What's one thing I didn't do so great? And they're not prepared for that question.
Well, ask me next time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I just let people know ahead of time. I'm really looking for genuine, honest feedback, and I want you to tell me what didn't go well,
Yeah.
So
Lisa, it was great catching up with you. Thanks so much. I think this is going to be really useful for a lot of people out there who have, the time now and the opportunity to listen to some podcasts between the other things they're doing, and to give them some inspiration to start getting out there and making them heard, make their impact.
If I can do it, so can you. I promise.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, and look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you, Eric. Have a good day.
If you enjoyed this podcast, here's some of our other ones at soundcloud.com/impact presenting, or on our website, www.impactpresenting.com, or our YouTube channel, Impact Presenting.